And there is no relationship that gives us the opportunity to grow and develop like the marriage relationship does. It's something very special. Well, today we're going to go a step beyond just love. No relationship you will ever be in will be perfect, because you are in it. That today we're going to talk a little bit about relationships. Does the Bible have much to say about relationships? It has a whole lot to say about relationships. Love God and love your neighbor. The law is all about relationships. It's really summed up with that concept. In fact, I think it was some time ago, and Mr. Holliday and a team were asked to sum up the essence of God's word and law in as concise a way as possible, and he said relationships. So we're here as John and Hannah are going to say their vows tomorrow. They are full of excitement and expectancy and maybe a little nervousness and anxiety, we'll be honest. Okay, so they will say their vows tomorrow, which I haven't read, but may or may not include love and perhaps this other little word that we use once in a while, especially in this context, cherish. And so when we go into weddings and funerals, there's this natural thing, for lack of a better word, that we do. We put ourselves into the words of the ceremony a little bit. Is it just me? Or when you hear those vows or when you hear something that's being said, you think, I remember saying words similar to this. How am I doing with that? Or with a memorial, we might think, I wonder how I am doing in these areas. I wonder what they will say about me. We do wonder that, if we may not want to admit it, but as we're thinking about these words that we'll hear tomorrow, we might ask ourselves, do I live these words? Did I mean it when I made that commitment? Would my wife think that I live these words? Regardless of whether we're married or not, hope to be, once were, or ever will be, we're all preparing to be the bride of Christ. We're looking forward to that time. So the words that we will hear do apply to us very personally. In fact, as we talk about covenant relationships, as we enter into that covenant relationship with Jesus Christ, that is what we prepare for from that moment on, and even before. We prepare for that ultimate relationship. So this is very much applicable to us. The vows that are said, that we said if we're married and that will be said tomorrow, are not said in a small little private room or in one of those little confessional booths or something. They're said publicly. Why are they said publicly? There's a sense of community, a sense of involvement that all of those who will be there will have, a sense of connection. And there's also something special about making promises in the presence of witnesses, because there's a level of accountability associated with those. So as we make those promises, they become very important. And as community, we then play a very important role for the couple and for each other. Notice that baptisms are rarely also done in a very small, recluded ceremony. They're often done in the presence of friends and witnesses. And it's a personal commitment, so it may not be as big in that way. But that commitment is also done in the presence, and there's a reason for that, and we find that reason in Titus. If you want to hop over to Titus. Titus 2 gives us an idea of the community that's created. So Titus is a pastor. He's been assigned to the island of Crete. And he's got multiple congregations there, and Paul is preparing him for this role. And so Paul says to Titus, "Speak these things which are proper for sound teaching, that the older men be sober, reverent, temperate, sound in faith and love and in patience." So, men, as we age, some of those fiery passions of youth are mellowed a little bit, and it's a good thing. We become more temperate and moderate. Moderate is not here to mean lukewarm, but it is not too hot or not too cold. Sometimes that can be a good thing. With the church in Revelation, not being hot or cold wasn't a good thing, but in this case, being moderate or temperate is a good thing. And so we support and set a good example. Ladies, to include you. Paul's words here say that the young women should also love their husbands, and they should be encouraged in this way, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, homemakers, good, obedient to their husbands, that the word of God may not be blasphemed. And then again, as part of the community, we'll bring the young men into this, that the young men should be serious-minded and showing good works. So, we're all included as we walk through these words today. And it's a very important aspect here that we discover and discuss. So, certainly, a young couple looks forward to the relationship that they will have, and they have their ideas about what life is going to be like, and that will certainly change a little bit over time as you discover what the relationship looks like. And we're encouraged, and we'll review this a little bit later, to learn to love. And that love is actually a sign of Christ's disciples. That's the one characteristic that should stand out more than any other. So it's a very multifaceted concept here that we explore. Galatians 5:22. You might want to turn there, but you probably don't need to. What's found in Galatians 5:22? The fruits of the Spirit. The fruits of the Spirit might also be characterized as different facets of love. And they show up in relationships. In fact, that's where we're tested on these attributes: love and joy and peace and gentleness and kindness and self-control. And these are all aspects that are very important. Now, we're here thinking about marriage today, and other relationships. And one of the first relationships that we have, as we see these little ones bouncing on knees, is with our parents. So we have relationships with our parents, and then as time goes on, and I think the time is about right for some siblings here, so we move into the sibling zone, and we have relationships then with our siblings as we continue to grow. And then we have friends. Lots of friends here, and we have relationships there, and those can be opportunities to grow and exhibit these elements of the fruits of the Spirit. And then we have roommates, and that's a different level. When you live with somebody, you get to know them in a different way, and you know that if you've had that experience. And then we might move on to marriage. And there is no relationship that gives us the opportunity to grow and develop like the marriage relationship does. It's something very special that God gives us. And so we learn or have opportunity to learn how to love. Well, today we're going to go a step beyond just love. Because love is important, but what we might do today is take a look at a concept that Christ shares with us in Matthew 5, where he says something. As a masterful teacher, Jesus Christ says to his disciples, he says, "You've heard it said of old," you've heard this for a long time, you've heard these words many times, that you should not murder. But he says, not only should you not murder, you shouldn't even think negative thoughts. You shouldn't say negative words. He levels up. He shares the spirit of the principle of not murdering. And then he goes on and with regard to adultery. We know the command, but he says, oh, it's way more than that. And that's what we're going to do with Cherish today as well. We're going to take the concept of love and consider that maybe it goes well beyond that, or we can take it well beyond that. We can learn to take love to a new level and cherish. Love, we have lots of words about love. Maybe we could consider that the letter of the law. This is how we're supposed to love, and maybe cherish elevates to the spirit of the law. It's a real tender care and preference. Do you want to see something a little bit gross? Love. Kyle? So here you see a couple in love. This may or may not have been their 30th anniversary, and I really fell in love with her all over again because we went camping on our 30th anniversary, and in a place where many of you know. This is North County, San Diego, also a place where you've probably been during the fall, as there have been feast sites there for many years, and this is a real special place for us because for countless years we would go to these beaches for the feast, and there's a couple of campsites right there with nothing between the campsites and the water, so it's a favorite place to go. So here we are in love on our 30th anniversary. We went for a little walk down the beach and took this picture. But let's go beyond just love. I mean, love is gross, but let's go to cherish. Kyle, this is cherish. It's like a whole new level. We go beyond to just love, right? So, Kyle, let's go to the next one. We don't want to distract everybody here. So, this is something we hold really dear. So, a book, an author you may or may not be familiar with. There's a guy named Gary Thomas. Anybody ever heard of Gary Thomas? I know Kyle has, and some of you probably indirectly know this as well. Kyle gave a presentation on this at Wamatachik Weekend, a young adults weekend that we host in northern Arizona every year, and he presented on sacred marriage. Well, the same author wrote another book entitled Cherish, the one word that changes everything for your marriage. He says many couples survive marriage by gritting their teeth and holding on. I won't ask for a show of hands. Or they find themselves just going through the motions in their relationship. Or maybe there's just low levels of friction from time to time. We've all been there in any relationship. Cherishing your spouse can reverse this pattern. It can be the antidote to those frustrating feelings. Cherishing can breathe light, hope, and a new life into a marriage, even one marred by neglect or disrespect. He says if you find yourself going through the motions in marriage, Cherish will walk you in a different direction and your spouse through real and practical ways to reverse the pattern. 5 major takeaways from the book that we'll walk through one at a time. Stop comparing and focus on the unique positive traits of your spouse. Erase contempt and honor your spouse. Let go of hurts and forgive your spouse. Go beyond serving and showcase your spouse. Don't stop trying. The more you cherish, the more you will cherish. It's a positive, virtuous cycle. So to illuminate, point number 1, your husband or wife is the only man or woman in the world for you. Everything else should not matter. That is it. As Adam was to Eve, as Eve was to Adam, that's how we should treat this core relationship of marriage. It's a natural human instinct. You might be sitting in the truck you love at a traffic light. And maybe you've taken great care of this truck. Our SUV, our family SUV, is a 2008. It's got 220,000 miles on it. I love that vehicle. Our son said, "This thing is everything but cool." It's kind of got a minivan with bigger wheels look to it, and it's a Saturn Outlook, if you happen to know what that is. It's not a flashy vehicle. It's not spectacular in any way. It's really understated, but you can put a lot of stuff in it, a lot of people. It has really comfortable seats. It gets pretty decent mileage, 20 plus, and there's nothing not to love about it. Well, then you see this truck pull up that's got cool wheels and it's a little lifted and sounds a little bit better. You think, oh, that's kind of cool. I wouldn't mind having one of those. It sure has a better look to it. And, oh, that's a pretty fast car. That looks like fun to drive. Probably corner a little better than this thing. And you could be comparing to all of the things. Am I in the right room? Does anybody do this with, maybe it's something else for you, but whatever it could be, you kind of look around and you think, that's got nice attributes. That has nice attributes. I think we can understand the principle here. That is not something we should be doing relationally, and especially with this relationship. In fact, my Bible's still open here to Matthew 5 and verse 27. Jesus Christ said, don't even look around, because that violates that commandment, that seventh commandment. So it's something that we should be learning and focusing on, but we can do it very deliberately. We can become enamored with our wife. I love the story, and maybe you do too, of Jacob and Rachel. He saw her and he said, that's the one. This is a great thing. And his father-in-law said, you'll work for me for 7 years for her. Done. I'll do it. And then there was a little trick played at the end of that 7 years, and so he spent 7 more years working. And whatever it takes, he was enamored. Maybe we can consider that as well. We can deliberately curate this attribute of putting the blinders on and really thinking about the positive elements of our spouse. It takes a deliberate, intentional effort to do that. And so perhaps thinking through that situation with the SUV can help. It's a kind of a silly, simple analogy, but I could also be just thinking, quit looking outside and think, this vehicle is great. I don't know how it is in Colorado, but registration fees in Arizona are pretty high for new vehicles. It's some percentage of the value of the vehicle, and it can be over $1,000 for a new vehicle. For this SUV, they say, give us $35 and it's registered for life. You can leave it unlocked. Nobody's taking that thing. It's just fine. No, you don't have to worry about any of it. Everything works. So everything on it works everywhere. It's got rear AC, everything. It just works. Tires last forever on that thing. It rides really nice. It's quiet. All great things. And you can just focus on the positive, and that's what we should do. Point number 2. Erase contempt and honor your spouse. There's 2 killers of marriage. 2 killers. They both start with C, and I just gave you one of them. What is one of them? Contempt. The other one starts with a C, maybe a little harder. Complacency. It's hard on any relationship. Much of the Bible talks about relationship or complacency, even in our relationship with our Father and our relationship with Jesus Christ. It says, avoid complacency. We're not talking about complacency today, but we will talk about contempt. Contempt is a killer because it's on the opposite end of the spectrum from cherish. Some of us might like to have visual analogies, and sometimes having antonyms on either end of a scale help us to understand that somewhere along the spectrum is the attribute that we're discussing. In between, if we look at a scale of cherish and contempt, we want to operate on the cherish side and be moving towards cherish. And there's this human series of relationships that can be very dangerous for us. Because let's just say we don't cherish. We fall out of the habit, or we never develop the habit of cherishing. Then what can happen? Maybe something isn't the way we imagined it would be in our dreams. And maybe what we start to do is become a little disappointed. This isn't what I had totally hoped it would be, so maybe I'm a little disappointed. What does disappointment lead to? I could get a little frustrated with those attributes that maybe aren't what you hoped they would be. And as you become a little frustrated, then you become a little disappointed, or disappointed leads to frustration, which leads to bitterness, which leads to contempt. And that's a very, very bad place relationally to be. So we want to move to the other side here. If we operate on the spectrum of cherish and contempt, which would grow in our marriage? Which one will grow in our relationships? Which one will become a bigger and bigger part of the relationship? There's an old Cherokee proverb that says that there are two wolves that live in each of us. And in this case, what we're going to do is replace the good and bad in each of us with cherish and contempt. And one will ultimately overtake the other. Which one wins? Say it loud. Well, hopefully. The one you feed. Kyle? We could say these are two wolves, but for today we're going to say two wolves. So here are the wolves. And it looks like this may be a tense day. So Kyle, let's go to Cherish. Isn't that cute? We'll just leave that up. It's a little gross. Kissing and all of that kind of stuff, but you're going to have to get used to it if you're going to the wedding tomorrow. Scott, this is just what you're going to have to see. So, let's hope that it's this that's being fed with the wolves. So, Dale Carnegie, anybody remember Dale Carnegie? He said, any fool can condemn, complain, or criticize. And most fools do. Let's go to 2 Corinthians 10:5. 2 Corinthians 10, verse 5, gives us some timeless advice that can apply in multiple different contexts. It says here that we should cast down arguments or thoughts and every high thing that exalts itself against the knowledge, or we might say instruction of the Lord. So cast aside all of these thoughts and bring every thought into captivity to the obedience of Christ. Christ himself said, if you exhibit these traits, that's how people will know you're my disciples. That's how they will know that you're becoming like me. That's how they will know that you're a student of mine, said Christ. When you develop these attributes. So this is how important it is. And fight the fight. Cast aside all the thoughts that are contrary to this. And focus and feed the good thoughts. Let's go to Philippians 4. God himself is the ultimate mental health expert. And here he says something that's really important. He says, we're going to have to replace our thoughts with something good to get rid of something that's bad. And here he says, Be anxious for nothing. Don't be worried about things or get all upset or uptight. We can consider synonyms for the emotion of anxiety. But in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving. With this positive, appreciative approach, let your request be made known to God. And the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and minds through Christ Jesus. You can toughen your heart and mind. You can become, we'll call it Teflon-like with regard to negative thoughts. You can let those slide right off because you develop these characteristics. Finally, brethren, whatever things are true, noble, just, pure, lovely, of a good report or virtuous, or anything praiseworthy, think about these things. When we apply that to this relationship, everyone is better off. Point number 3. Let go of hurts and forgive your spouse. Ephesians 4. Ephesians is considered the crown of the epistles. It's a great study. It's very rewarding. As you study epistles, we, in the first 3 chapters, read about our relationship with Jesus Christ. And in the next 3 chapters, we read about our relationships with each other. And in Ephesians 4 and verse 32, we read, be kind to one another, tender-hearted. In order for this to be possible, for that kindness and that tender, loving heart to show up, what must we do? We must forgive one another. You ready for something really gross? This is a crude analogy. It's a little bit graphic. But I'm going to use it because I think it can leave an indelible imprint. It makes a point. We have in our house a ridiculous cat named Milo. Milo is this cat. He's kind of goofy. He's fun. And he has this little box where he does his business. And it's our daughter's cat. It was her COVID cat. And we have all our kids' animals that they have moved out, but then they come and leave their animals at our house, and then they leave, and we've got all these animals. But anyway, this COVID cat she couldn't take back with her to college or in apartments or things. So anyway, he's at our house. And I never thought I would like a cat, but I kind of do like this one. Don't tell anyone. But it does its business in this box. And in that little box, it can be tempting, instead of going through the business of cleaning it all out, to just rake it over. Make it look all smooth on top. It looks brand new then. And it looks like it was all just changed. Could do the easy job of that, just kind of smooth it over. But what's inside there? What's underneath? I told you it was gross and crude. Well, you know what's in there. And if you get the little rake and scoop through it, it kind of all clumps together, and it's a little bit smelly, and it goes in the bag and goes in the dumpster, and the new stuff comes in, and then it really is clean. If we're going to have a nice, clean, fresh marriage, we have to get rid of the stuff that's in there. Otherwise, it's still there. You may not see it. It may not be evident. It may be smoothed over. It may look like everything's fine. You may smooth it over in the car right before you walk in here. But it's all still there. If you don't get rid of it, it's still there. And eventually, it's going to stink. So just get rid of it. Go through the hard work to rake it out. Get rid of it. Forgiveness is how we get rid of it. I cannot, no matter what, train that cat to clean it out himself. It's an expectation that will never come to reality. So somebody else has to do it. And the only one who can forgive is us. We have to forgive. So we have an option, though. We can hang on to it. You can carry all that with you if you want. Let's go to Hebrews 12:1. Let's just say you get a little backpack, and you just clean out the litter box, but you put it in a bag and put it in your backpack and carry it with you. And then just every day you add a little more to it and you fill up that pack. And then you get a little extender pack and hang that. Maybe you get a little cart and you wheel it behind you and you just keep carrying all these hurts with you. Who's hurting there? You. You're the only one. Hebrews gives us some timeless advice. As we become more like Jesus Christ, as we read these words in Ephesians and Colossians to forgive one another, we read in Hebrews 12, lay aside, I'm breaking into verse 1 here, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and run with endurance the race that is set before us. In Colossians it says, forgive one another, how? Does anybody remember? Even as Christ forgave you, so you should forgive one another. That's our example. So that's, as it says here, look to Jesus Christ, the author and finisher of our faith. It's for our sins that he died. He bled and was beaten for us. Could he be upset about that? He could, but he isn't. He forgives. We ask for that forgiveness. And whether we're asked or not, it says here, forgive. So, the alternative is carry it with us. And we're the only one who suffers then. Point 4. Go beyond serving and showcase your spouse. I'm going to pull this analogy right from the book. Because it's pretty impactful the way he shares this. He uses this ballet analogy. Now, I have never done ballet. And maybe you have, maybe you haven't. Maybe you've been to one. Maybe you appreciate what happens in a ballet. But in a ballet, there's a ballerina. And the ballerina moves in a beautiful way, usually with very nice music. And the idea of the ballet is to showcase the ballerina. And if there are mixed genders on the stage, typically the role of the male, and I don't even know the term for this, for what a male ballet guy is, but it's his job to showcase the ballerina. So what he does is makes her moves even more beautiful. He can throw her up in the air so she can spin more times. He can lift her, and he showcases her beauty, and when all of that's done and the lights come on, he kind of disappears into the shadow while she takes center stage and the applause and the roses and all the wonderful things. So he says, gentlemen, should we not showcase our spouses? Is that not how we can exhibit this characteristic of cherish? To showcase them so that every word, every syllable that comes out of our mouth about them is to showcase their strengths and their beauty, and to minimize ourselves. Now, one thing that will happen over time is we'll get to know each other well. The wolves will get to know each other well. And you'll come to learn something about each other, that you stumble from time to time. And we all do. Let's go to James 3, just a couple pages over from where you may be still in Hebrews. James 3, verse 2 says something. We all stumble in many things. So he's about to go into talking about words, and that's a great application of a way to cherish, is to not stumble in our words. But we do all stumble in many ways. So if we just consider that we stumble in many ways, how about if we remove the stumbling blocks? How about if we recognize that this is the way my wife stumbles? And so let's just minimize or avoid that. So here we are in a new town, and at this moment, I'm not sure I could tell you which way north is. Usually I know. I kind of have this intuition. I have pretty good directional abilities. Carrie has even said something nice about her husband. She says, you always seem to know where you're going. You always seem to have a good sense of direction. A little secret amongst us, she doesn't. Her instinct every single time is wrong. It's day 7 of the feast. We've been there 985 years. We walk out of the elevator and she goes the wrong way because church is that way. Honey, we've been walking out of this thing all week. It's pretty entertaining. What I wouldn't do is ask her in front of a whole group, honey, which way do you think we should go? I think that way. Okay, crew, let's go this way. It's our best bet. It's a way that she just doesn't have that same geospatial awareness, which is okay. We're a good team. And so as long as we're together, we may get home. The little Google Maps has been a really good thing. Honestly, some of you have been married before GPS came out. I respect you. I do not know how our marriage would have survived if she was doing the map and I was driving. And I mean, even with GPS, a lot of times she'll say, you should have turned right there. Honey, a quarter mile ago, that would have been really helpful. My love. So we want to present her spotless and in her best light. Maybe to even recognize, okay, honey, you just, if you could, whenever that thing makes any noise, tell me what noise it's making. Now it's in the dashboard, but we really had to suffer back in the day when somebody was holding this thing and looking at it. When it makes noise, tell me what it says before we pass it. So we just might be preemptive. And whatever that thing is for you, there is a certain element that needs to be showcased. So this is something that John Wolfe, Mr. Wolfe, may have recently learned a little something about. And does anybody know who the GIA is? Not the CIA, the GIA. Well, there's probably more than one GIA, but the Gemological Institute of America is known as the GIA. And they recognized at some point that it was necessary to establish some standards to assess gems. And so they came up with some C's, the 4 C's. And maybe you are like me and you knew nothing about the 4 C's until a very specific time of life, when you started to do a little research and learn about color, cut, clarity, and we'll borrow a page out of Mr. Bacher's hymn book today, ladies. We'll go ladies only at this point. What's the 4th C? Carrots. That's the size of that thing. Okay, so color, cut, clarity, and carrots. So we learn a little bit about these stones and the different clarity. And we also learn of another little aspect called inclusions. And there's this grading system of flawless, internally flawless, and then probably a range where we could start to afford this, VVS1 and VVS2, which are very, very slightly included. There might be some slight inclusions in the stone. And then it continues from there to slightly included or included. And what we're going through is progressively these grades of diamonds and how and where you can see the flaws. So with the VVS1 and VVS2, you can't see the flaws unless you really look with a microscope. And it's at VS1 and VS2 that you can see them with 10 times magnification. And then below that, you can see them with your regular eye. Or maybe you used to be able to. But you can see them. So part of the formation process, part of the heat and pressure that forms this beautiful stone creates flaws. There are small irregularities in the atomic structure, and this is natural. And then a jeweler comes and takes these raw diamonds, and it's their job to cut away as much of the inclusions as possible. And there are many different cuts: princess cut, marquise cut. Help me out here. Any other ones? Emerald cushion. Princess is one. Okay, princess. We've got these different cuts. Did you have a princess cut ring? Do you? Oh, that would have been fun. Her husband always referred to her as princess. And so the brilliantier is the term that the Hasidic Jews use for this person that is to take a look at the stone and use their expertise to find out how to minimize the flaws and maximize the brilliance of the stone. Are we seeing the analogy here? That maybe that's what we can all become for each other in our relationships, is a brilliantier, to maximize the beauty and minimize the flaws. Has anybody ever heard of cubic zirconia? CZ. Chemically, it's the same. Lab-grown diamonds are diamonds. They're just grown in a lab. We might see a metaphor shaping up here as we think about the fact that there can be things creative, images and artificial intelligence that may not even represent something real. But do you know how a jeweler knows the difference between something that was grown in a lab and something that is authentically a diamond? The diamond has flaws. When a jeweler looks through the microscope and sees something so perfect, he knows this is not real. This wasn't formed through the normal process. It doesn't have those flaws and inclusions. We all do. We all do. And so, if we consider that the artificial don't have flaws, the only way we could have a flawless relationship is in our imagination. In reality, it doesn't exist. Thankfully, somebody told me this when I was a young man. They said, Scott, no relationship you will ever be in will be perfect, because you are in it. Okay. We can all think about that. We can think about the fact that Romans 5:6 says, when we were still without strength, when we were just these humans, Christ died for the ungodly. He died for us. He paid the penalty for our sins when we didn't deserve it, and set an example for us. If we would have continued to read through Hebrews 12, we said, look to Jesus Christ. Lay aside the weights and look to Jesus Christ, the author and finisher of our faith, who's been through this race. And it says, run with endurance. Sometimes it takes endurance. It takes some long suffering to work through our own human emotions. Philippians 2, verse 3 through 5, I'll just read it for you. You probably know it. It should be very familiar. It says, let nothing be done through selfish ambition or conceit, but in lowliness of mind, let each esteem others better than himself. Let each of you look out not only for your own interests, but also for the interests of others. What if we could do that in those relationships? Matthew 5:48 gives us some instruction in this regard. Matthew 5:48. Does anybody have it memorized? Say it aloud, Doug.
Be perfect, for I am perfect.
Be perfect as God is perfect. How are we doing on that? That's tough. The good news is it is what it says. But that it gives us a path to get there. And really, it's not setting an expectation, it's setting an aspiration. And it tells us how we get there. Basically, if we go back and read the rest of the chapter, the preceding elements of this chapter, it says it's Christ basically amplifying again the words that had been heard before. This is following this section where it said don't murder, but not just don't murder. Don't even talk bad or think bad about a person. Don't commit adultery. Don't even look at any other images or any other person. Keeps going. And here in verse 43 it says, or we could go back. Verse 38, you've heard that it was said. He keeps going. These are the things you've heard. Now we're going to talk about what they mean. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, don't even resist an evil person. If someone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to him the other also. If they want to sue you and take away your outside jacket, take the tie. It matches sometimes. Take it all. You can have it. And not to try to draw the line and go to fight. You've heard that it was said, you shall love your enemy. Love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I say to you, love your enemies. Bless those who curse you. To those who hate you, and pray for those who spitefully use and persecute you. He's taking it up to the next level here. For if you love those who only love you, what reward do you have you? That's what other people do. This is something different that I'm asking you. And if you can do something different, something more than you've been asked of before, then you would be perfect, as your Father in heaven is perfect. If we can learn to not just love, but to cherish, then we're becoming more like God. It takes a mindset and an attitude, a deliberate, intentional attitude. I'll give you a couple of passages. If you're taking notes, you might want to take a look at this, maybe this afternoon or at some point. 1 Corinthians 13 is well known as what chapter? The love chapter. One thing it says is it doesn't matter what your talents and abilities are. It doesn't matter how awesome you are at whatever it is you're awesome at. If you don't have love, that doesn't work for God. It doesn't help him much. Philippians 4:8, we referred to earlier, took a peek at, talks about what is true, what is honorable and right. Take some time and define each of those words. What is true? Are you sure it was intentional? Are you sure that what's frustrating you is even true? Like my wife deliberately did this thing to make me upset. In fact, I've borrowed this one. She's upset at me. And I say, honey, I didn't start the day trying to ruin your life today. My intent was positive. I can understand how you're receiving it, but you might remember this. I didn't mean to do this. Well, the Scripture encourages us to love others as we love ourselves. How many here love themselves? Oh, we have some honest people. But we might humbly say, I really don't love myself that much. But we really do, at least in one way. What's one way that we love ourselves? I answer the question with the words I said just a minute ago. I didn't mean to do this. I didn't intend to upset you. We judge ourselves by our intent. We judge others by the outcome. We judge others by how we received it. What if we could love others like we love ourselves? What if we could judge others and say, what was her intent? Maybe she intended something good. So it wasn't deliberate. Her intent was good. And so just an example of how we might think through the encouragement in Philippians 4 and apply it. What is honorable? There is a reason that you are attracted to the person that you're married to. What are those reasons? Make a list of them. Make a list and keep it handy. What makes you thrilled to be married to the person that you're married to? There's something. Think about those things. What is right? What is in alignment with God? What is pure, a precious commodity? What is lovely? What is admirable? What is excellent? So look for those things. Colossians 3. Colossians 3 is a favorite section for me, and maybe is or will be for you. If you go to Colossians 3, it's almost like it tells us how to cherish. You could read the whole thing. If you were raised with Christ, if you came out of those baptism waters with Christ, seek the things which are above, the characteristics and attributes of the God family. Setting your mind on things above. He says, put to death the members that are on earth. Put to death the old person and the way the other person thought. And verse 12, as the elect or chosen of God, put on tender mercies, kindness, humility, meekness, long-suffering, bearing with one another, and forgiving one another. If anyone has a complaint against one another, even as Christ forgave you, you must also do. And above all these things, put on love, and above all that, put on cherish. Okay. Maturity, is a process. We can't go from immature to mature immediately. It's not like a light switch. Maybe it's more like a dimmer switch. It takes time. It takes practice. It takes effort. But we can do that. 1 Corinthians 13, 11 and 12 says, when I was a child, this is in the love chapter here, I spoke as a child. I understood as a child. I was a little bit immature. But when I became a man, I put away childish things. I grew up. I developed my thought processes. My words, my thoughts, my actions. I got rid of destructive thought patterns, or strived to, valued that, and moved toward something. Peter, we might love Peter. We read stories of a young, enthusiastic, energetic, bombastic man that was Peter, who matures over time. And here in 2 Peter, we're reading some of his last words, most likely, things he wanted to leave behind. And he says in verse 5 of his second letter here, for this very reason, give all diligence to add to your faith virtue, virtue knowledge, knowledge self-control, self-control perseverance, perseverance godliness, godliness brotherly kindness. See how it's escalating here into brotherly kindness, love. For today's purposes, we'll keep going into love, cherish. You just keep growing and developing. So we want to grow and be like God. 1 John 3 says the day will come, verses 1 through 3, when we will see God and we will be like Him. We will see Him as He is, for we will be like Him. That is, if we're becoming like Him, and this is how we do it. We learn to reflect His light brilliantly and beautifully, and He shapes us like the brilliantier. How does the brilliantier shape the diamond? The diamond is the hardest surface we know. It's through an abrasive process. It's a challenging, stressful process. The facets are ground in to the stone that's going to be beautiful and reflect the light. But as every facet is added through the hands of a skilled craftsperson, then it becomes more brilliant and reflects the light more brilliantly. How do those facets become incorporated into our character? Through challenging processes. There is no other way to get there. So the Lord, our God, is shaping us so that we can reflect His light. There is no light inherent in a diamond, but it can be very beautiful, but it reflects the light that's around it. We reflect God. That's what we should be doing. Cherish and self-control and these different character traits are like muscles. They have to be exercised. They are exercised through resistance. And it's challenging to build muscle. It's challenging to build character. But what happens is we get stronger over time. They take shape over time. It gets easier to do things that once were hard as we get stronger. And that's the way it is with these character traits of cherish and self-control. So let's rejoice with the bride and groom this weekend. Let's celebrate their commitment to the journey. Let's support them. Let's set an example for them. Let's exemplify Titus 2. Let's understand what God is doing through our relationships with each other as He shapes our character to be like Him. Let's not just love. Let's cherish.